Okay, today we'll be working on the 2019 Honda Pilot EXL, and we're going to be replacing the passenger side strut with a KYB from Rock Auto. Now, I figured my strut was going out because as we go over bumps, I hear like a hollow thudding noise. And also when I was doing my last oil change, I noticed that the shock was leaking behind the wheel there. So I'll show that in a second once we get it up on the lift. Okay, so just show you real quick. Underneath here, this is the bad strut. You can see how all that is kind of black. It's full of like oil. That's from the strut leaking. Look at the driver's side. It's a lot cleaner. There's not a bunch of fluid there. And so that's how I know that my strut is bad. Look up under there, if you can see it or not, but you can tell that it's leaking, causing a mess. So I'll just be replacing the passenger side strut. So once the car is securely lifted, the first thing you want to do is remove the wheel that you're going to be working on. Okay, so first we're going to remove this, what I believe is a wheel speed sensor cable. Plugs into the strut right here. Just pull that off. Has another clip right here that you can get off with a screwdriver or some pliers. Just pops out. Then there's a 10mm bolt right here we need to take out. So we get that off first, and then I'll also take off this brake line holder that's 12mm right there. So in order to get the shock, the whole strut to separate out of the car, we're gonna have to remove the spindle assembly. So we're gonna end up taking, this off, take this off here. We're gonna have to take off this ball joint down here, take the caliper off, and then get the CV axle out of here in order to get this whole spindle off to give us enough space to get the shock out, or the strut assembly. So I'll take this off next. This is a 17mm, and yep, do that next. So as you notice, as I take stuff off, I'm trying to put the nut back where I took it off from. Screwed this back in there. Just trying to keep track of the fasteners. Next I'll do the tie rod end. So I'll need some pliers to get this cotter pin out first, and then I'll find out what size socket I need to get that off. Okay, so this was also a 17mm right here. So again, I'm going to put that back on there. So it came off pretty easy with the impact. Again, I'm using this impact for a lot of stuff, a big heavy duty one, and it makes super light work of all this stuff. The important thing with this is the best this has ever gone for me. When you're taking out these ball joints, I've always seen on videos and TV, they get a big hammer. Which is what I was doing this guy. And you beat on the metal outside of it to kind of shock it to try to get this to release. So I was hitting it pretty hard. Let me do it real quick so you can see how hard. I was doing like that hard, multiple times. And I would lightly, I say lightly, but lighter tap on the bottom of this to see if it would pop out. So you do hard hits here on the side to kind of shock it, and then kind of lighter taps to try to pop this out. What you don't want to do is hit this too hard on the bottom, because if you hammer this on the bottom too hard, you can damage these threads and then the nut won't go back on. So you want to do light taps on the bottom here and heavy hits on the side, and eventually that should get it to break loose. Okay, next I'm going to take this bolt out here in the back. This is also 17mm, I believe. And this, I think, just kind of holds the bottom of the strut in place, so I'll take that out next. I'm going to take the brake caliper support off of the rotor, and to do that, I'm going to need a 19mm socket. And there's two bolts back here. See one up here, and that goes on there, and then another one down here. right there, my finger is. And those bolt the brake caliper to the spindle. So I'm gonna get that off just to get the brake caliper out the way. The important thing when you do that is to protect this rubber brake line. You don't want to stretch or stress this line. So you see, once I get it off, I'm gonna find a box or something to set it on, so I'm not, hanging by this rubber hose, because if you hang by this or bend this or stress it, you could break it. So just be careful to support it so you don't stress this hose. So again, because this whole spindle assembly has to kind of drop down to get the strut from this position here, this has to come up out. Next, I'm going to disconnect the CV axle here to give us some more room to get the spindle out the way. And the first thing you need to do for that is to undo this nut. And it's got a little crimp right here that you need to pry open first. Kind of locks into a cavity there, so the screwdriver or something, you can pry that, make sure it clears this teeth, and then with the 36mm nut you can unscrew this, and that'll release the CV axle shaft. Okay, so that's loose. So you see, I just had to hammer that. I used 2 hammers to knock that out. Just need to use a little more force than I thought, and it pushed out. So the last thing now is to do this lower ball joint here. So I'm going to take this pin out, and I believe it's a 19mm wrench I'm going to need right here, but I'll double check and let you know. Okay, so the last thing to do down here is just to separate this lower ball joint from the spindle, which is what I've been dreading. I think this might be the hardest thing because it's just sometimes hard to do that. So I'm going to use a special tool, a separator. You can borrow them from car part stores. It's just a ball joint separator. I need to find it first, it's somewhere around here, and put that on here to get this, hopefully get this ball joint out easily. Once we do that, we should be able to pull the spindle off and get the bottom of the strut out, and then go in through the hood and unscrew it from the top there. So to remove the bottom ball joint, I'm going to use this ball joint separator. You can rent these from AutoZone or O'Reilly's, or buy them for like 25 bucks. The important thing to do is to make sure you don't damage this boot though. So just be careful when you're fitting it in there. Okay, so I think I destroyed my ball joint by using my ball joint separator. These are too skinny to fit around the ball joint, and I tried to use it anyways, and I think I damaged it. So I went and got one from AutoZone. These are a little bit wider, and it fits around correctly. So I'm gonna try to get the ball joint out and see if I can salvage the ball joint, but if not, I'll have to replace that too. Alright, so we got it off. See, the ball joint's totally destroyed, but I couldn't think of another way to get it off, so my dad helped me out and just hammered on it with the fork separator. Just had to keep beating on it, finally separated. So now we can get this out of the way, and then we should be able to pull the CV out, and then this should hopefully slide down and take the whole spindle out and just leave the shock hanging. Alright, so luckily my dad was here when I got that out and gave me a hand to get the spindle out, so I wasn't expecting this to slide out so easy. It just kind of slid out. So, but you can see once I got the bottom unbolted and out the way, I used this big crowbar here to kind of pry it out of the way, the lower control arm down, and once that went out of the way, then the whole spindle came down, and then just had to get the CV out the center of it. And so yeah, if you got another person to help you, it definitely helps. So now that's out the way, next we're going to go up top, and we need to unbolt the strut. I think there's a couple of plastic clips you take off here to get to the top bolts, so I'll do that next. And I guess one more thing, as you can see, this ball joint is totally destroyed. This rubber is totally chewed up from the fork. I don't know how to do this without destroying it. You can see this is how I destroyed it the first time using my ball joint separator tool. It kind of caved in the top of the bolt here. So honestly, at this point I'm probably just going to get a whole new lower control arm. It's got like basically 4 bolts, one here and then 3 under here, and this whole thing comes out pretty easy. And it comes, the new one should come with a new ball joint, and it comes with new rubber bushings here. These bushings are cracked already anyways, so might as well replace it while I'm here. But unfortunately I don't know how to separate this without destroying it, so maybe do some research to see if you can. Okay, so up here in the cowl area above the strut, under the hood, I've got the hood open, you can pop out this little plastic panel here, and you pop this open too. And these go out of the way, and down in this area you've got 3 bolts, 14 millimeter, that keep your strut attached to the strut mount. So we're going to take those off next with a 14 millimeter socket. Alright, so as I was loosening this last one, I had one hand on the ratchet and the other hand down on the spring, and this is heavier than I was expecting, so just be careful. When that last nut comes off, this whole strut's just going to want to fall out, so make sure you're holding on to it, or better yet, if you got somebody else, have them hold on to it while you unscrew it from the top. So now we can disassemble the strut, because we're going to keep our spring and you know, put the new strut or the new shock on, and the new mounting plate, and the new baffle cover. So here's all the new stuff I bought. So here's a new KYB shock / strut. Then I got this little spring isolator thing. This goes inside of here, I think, and then the top mount are all the things that I believe I'm supposed to replace. So now I need to compress this spring. I've got these spring compressors that I, again, rented from O'Reilly's, local auto parts store. And these go on either side. Crank down on this and it'll compress it. So compress the spring, take this apart, move the spring over, and then should be able to put the new strut assembly in. So work on that next. Okay, so again, I rented this from AutoZone, and so this is loose enough now where this isn't touching all the way up here and this is spinning loosely. So now we can take off this bolt here. So that was annoying to get this nut out. Basically, we used vice grips on an Allen key and vice grips on the outside of a socket to get this nut out because it was spinning. Once we got that off, pulled the spring off and put on the new shock. And so you just want to make sure that the end of the coil is up against this tab right here. And then you can also tell it's the correct orientation because the new strut has a little triangular notch out, or square notch right here where the spring isolator sits. So this spring rubber isolator has a little square right here, and the strut has a little square spot right here, the new one and the old one. So again, the end of the coil bumps up against here, and the little rubber isolator is going to sit inside the square on the new one. So once you have that back together, you can put everything back together. Okay, so I bought a new one of these and a new shroud or cover, but I'm just going to reuse the old ones because they're still in good shape, but I am going to use a new top mount. So I just pulled this off the old one, old top mount, put in the new one like that. Again, I'm reusing the old shroud because it's still in good shape. So now this should just drop in, and then I can use the nut that came with the new kit. It just goes on there. Just tighten that on. Make sure that's good and tight, and then we should be able to release tension on the spring. Alright, try to hit it with the impact, but yeah, we're going to have to use the Allen wrench. So we got the Allen wrench going down the middle, and then just two of these locking pliers. And that's allowing us to drive this nut without it spinning. It's okay if this spins. Alright, so that bottomed out, so now we just have to loosen this and it should be fine. Again, the important thing with the compressor is just to make sure you're doing it evenly on both sides. So I'm gonna do, like, you know, a few clicks here, a few clicks there. Check to make sure everything looks okay.
Going in the right place? You got the spring where it's supposed to see?
Yeah. Probably. Ugh. Oh, it's just decompressing the shot. Alright, kind of sketchy, but if you can pay somebody to do that, maybe you should. Take it to a local shop if you don't feel comfortable doing it. So this is a little awkward. This is round 2 of me taking out this strut because this one was making a bunch of noise. I did something wrong, I think, when I replaced the shock and kept the spring and whatever. But 2 points I want to make. First, I was able to take the ball joint off this time. Now, it helped probably because I just replaced this lower control arm about 6 weeks ago, so it probably wasn't as stuck as it was last time. But I also tried a lot harder just to use a heavy hammer. Oh, this guy! And I just did a lot of hits. I mean, like, I'm not gonna do it now because it's not in, but I mean hard hits here and here and here, and then on the left side too. Just hitting it really hard, and then moving the wheel kind of left and right, trying to get it to come out. I also sprayed some PB Blaster here, so it went down the bolt holes, I'm hoping, and helped loosen that up. I don't know if it did or not, but anyways, it is possible to get that off without totally destroying it. I'll post some links to other YouTube videos where I saw guys do it with a hammer also. And then second, I'm going to try to find out if I can see what I did wrong with this guy, and if I do, I'll let you know. Okay, so I think I see my problem with the strut that I did. So this is a replacement strut I bought from AutoZone. It's called a loaded strut, so it comes already new shock with the spring installed, with the top mount, all one piece. So all you do is pull the old one out, put the new one in. Whereas when I did this one, you know, I kept my old spring. I can see the differences here in the top mount, where on mine that I replaced, I have like 2 rubber gaskets here. I have this one and this one. On the new loaded one, there's just 1 rubber gasket. So I screwed something up. I was supposed to take one of these out, I guess, whenever I rebuilt my strut, and I guess that's what has been making my noise. Basically, it sounded like something was loose every time I hit a bump. You hear plop, 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 plop. So it's something to do with these 2. I have 2 rubber gaskets here instead of just 1, like over here. So it's gonna be much easier just to replace the whole thing. But if you have, you know, if you go the route where you buy the KYB shock and do it yourself, pay extra attention that your top mount plate and whatever, I guess this is your boot, that you're not doubling up on rubber gaskets at the top. You should just have 1, because that caused, I believe, the issue with my shock. We're going on vacation in a couple of days, so I'm just gonna put the new one in. I'll probably keep this one. Maybe I'll take it apart and fix it and put it back in at a later date. But anyways, pay attention to the top whenever if you're doing it yourself. Okay, so if you do end up having to replace your lower control arm like me, I had to fight this way more than I thought I would, but here's how I finally got it. There's 5 bolts basically. There's this one. This is towards the front of the car here, and then further towards the back there's these 3, and there's a nut inside of here. And to get everything to line up, I had to put these 2 in first very lightly to get this bracket to line up. And then I put this nut on. I put this nut on first, I think, very lightly. Then this one. Then this one. Then this one. And then this one last. And that was the only way I could get it to all line up, and I still had to fight it. So just follow that order if you have to do this. And I did it all by hand just to make sure I wasn't stripping anything out. I basically had to drive these bolts through this bracket first. They're like screwing through the bracket, because this bracket I think is a little off. But you know, so you're fighting it the same way I am. Just kind of follow that order. Do the nut first, this bolt, front bolt, and last one this. You should be able to get it on. So next I'm gonna try to put the strut in by myself. I don't know if I'll be able to do it, because I need to get it up there and then go into the top and put nuts on it. So we'll see if I can do it by myself or not. But one thing to note, I think this is the correct orientation on how it should be, but this top plate does still spin. It's kind of hard to spin, but it does spin. But one nut's going to be facing the front and the two nuts are going to be facing the back, so it should go in about that orientation. And if it's not perfect when you get in there, you can spin it a little bit to get it close to where it needs to be. But you know, it's best to try to get it in the correct orientation before putting it in. So let's see if I can get it in by myself. Okay, that wasn't too bad. Definitely start with the back two nuts first. They're easy to get to. And then the front nut you can get through the back compartment. So this is the back compartment, this is the front compartment. So to get to the front nut, I actually put my hand through the back compartment and reached towards the front and was able to hand tighten that. So once you get them hand tightened, get them started on all three, then you can let go of the strut and come back and tighten it down. So next we'll put the spindle back on. That was another good two-person job. Couple of things to consider. Definitely wear gloves. I've got these big cut resistant gloves I got from work. Wear gloves. A lot of sharp, dangerous things, pinch points there. So first thing I had to do was make sure that the CV axle was inside of the hub. So I did that first. And then after that, I made sure that the strut went into the spindle here. One thing to note is the back of this spindle has a little tab, a little metal tab sticking out. There's a slot on the front here and there's another slot on the back down here. And so you need to make sure that that slot on the spindle that's sticking out lines up, or the tab that sticks out lines up with the slot in the strut. I was fighting that at first, I didn't realize that. So you probably can't see it anymore because it's fully inside of there. But again, there's a tab that sticks out of this thing going in, and there's a slot inside of the strut. And those have to line up for it to slide in. So once I got that slid in all the way, bottomed out, then you can see I use my pry bar on the control arm to pry that down to then try to get the ball joint in, which is still not fully seated. I need to figure out a way to, I don't know, the ball joint's kind of pointing outwards and needs to point inwards, so I need to fix that still. But so I was putting my leg on the pry bar and two hands on that. Again, I'm on a lift. This is very safe because it's supported. If you're on jack stands, be very careful when you're working under the wheel well, and probably good to have another set of hands, somebody else, you know, maybe prying on the pry bar while you work on this. But anyways, I still got to do something and try to get that ball joint in. Okay, so I got my ball joint to finally, it was getting stuck here. It was like at an angle and I want to go through all the way, but basically forcing the wheel to point to the right, just pushing this back like that, gave it the right geometry where it flung up, and now it's in there good. So now I can put the new nut that came with the ball joint on the ball joint. Make sure you put the cotter pin in, tighten that down, and then just start putting together all the rest of the stuff we took off. I mean, just the reverse of installation. It should go pretty quick now. You know, got to put the caliper on, got to put the tie rod ends, sway bar end link, and all the brake line connections, and it should be pretty quick. Okay, so I can tell my CV axle isn't pushed out all the way as far as it should be. Because when I do this, you know, just bottom this out right now by hand, it's not sticking out enough to where I can, sorry, you know, bend this into this little crevice here. But, and I don't know if you're supposed to do this or not, if I crank on it, it does. If I look back here, I can see that it's pulling the CV through. Uh-oh, no it's not. Anyways, I might try to hit that with the impact and try to pull that CV through. I don't know if that's the right way to do it or not, but I can't pull it through by hand, so I'll try to research what the right way to do this is. This might not be it, but I'll let you know if it works. Okay, I just kept doing it by hand. Let me see if I can show you what I did real quick. Just like basically trying to put some inertia behind it. I'll put the socket on and just go fast. And just go fast with the push, and it will work its way on. And it looks like it pulled it through from almost lined up to where it was before. But it's pretty close. So I'm gonna see if I can lock this in somehow. But yeah, it should be good. A couple times with the impact, and I got this to line up in that slot. So I'm just gonna hammer this with a screwdriver and make sure that locks into that little keyway. And then it's just you know, bolting in this brake line. I plugged in the speed sensor in there that just clipped in. I'm gonna make sure I bolt it back in there. This cable bolts back in there. And then I think it's just the wheel, and I'll put it back on the ground.